We are in the second day of discussing a motion that should have been moved very smoothly through our first meeting, because this is a motion regarding a decision that was made by this committee last July regarding the obtaining of documents uh, regarding the payments that were made to the Trudeau family through their work with we. Uh, Many of the sitting members of this committee were on that last committee and voted for it. We voted for a very clear set of rules around it to protect the privacy of the individuals involved. It was based on a respect that we have a duty as parliamentarians to call for evidence when necessary. And it's also recognized that we need to have an agreement to make sure that that evidence is protected and the privacy of individuals protected. So it was a fairly straightforward motion, and yet we've seen nothing but obstruction from the Liberals, an obstruction that began when the day we were supposed to receive these documents, the Prime Minister shut Parliament down. So the documents, is my understanding, is that they are in the hands of the committee clerk. We have these documents, but we are not being able to do our work because of this Liberal obstruction. And I think this is very, very unfortunate. So why do these documents matter? Well, the issue is that the question of conflict of interest of the Prime Minister, who's under investigation right now, that the We group, particularly the Kielburger brothers, had built a close relationship with the Trudeau family that included financial payments. And this was highly problematic because under Section 5 of the Conflict of Interest Act, the Prime Minister has the obligation to keep his family business in order so that he does not find himself in a conflict. And everything about this scandal is about that conflict. So why do these documents matter? Well, when the Kielburgers were first asked whether Margaret Trudeau and Sasha Trudeau were being paid, they said nobody got paid. And we know that many high-profile speakers, such as Julie Black and Theo Fleury, gave their time to We and did not get paid. It was then shown that what the Kielburgers and the We group were saying was false, that Margaret Trudeau had been paid well over $300,000, and the payments with Justin Trudeau's brother amounted to over $500,000. So that discrepancy needs to be accounted for. When we sat at the Finance Committee, we asked the chair of the former chair of We, who had been fired by the Kielburgers, Michelle Douglas, about why the Trudeau family were being paid this amount of money when nobody else was paid. And what Michelle Douglas said was extraordinary. She said that the board of directors had specifically asked the Kielburger brothers if these payments were being made to the Trudeaus, and they were told, no money has been paid. So that was false. When we asked the Kielburger brothers to explain this discrepancy, they claimed at the finance hearings that Margaret Trudeau and Sasha Trudeau were not paid for public speaking, but were paid for the ancillary events afterwards. That's the corporate sponsorship events. So the question of hiring the Prime Minister's family to work corporate sponsorship events put the Prime Minister in a pretty clear issue of conflict of interest.
Mr. Angus, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have some information that may impact your presentation there that I don't think was clear to the members before, that we are not actually in possession of these documents. They were requested to be sent on August 19th, and on August 18th, the House was prorogued. So we actually have to demand those documents once more. Wanted to be clear on that.
Well, thank you for that clarification. My understanding was that we were in possession of the documents. However, our committee had given instructions to obtain those documents, and the effort to get those documents was interfered with by the Prime Minister's decision to prorogue. So I think the issue remains a serious question of the interference in the work of our committee. But in the 5,000 pages of documents we received, it was really striking that in the pitch to the senior cabinet, senior officials, the Kielburger brothers included photographs of the Prime Minister's family, which I think is very shocking. What I think is more shocking is that in those 5,000 pages of documents, nobody said that this was problematic. We do know that some civil servants noted the fact that the Prime Minister's family, the people who had been paid, were being included in the pitch to get this contract. But at no point did anyone say that this was a serious conflict of interest, that this breached very obvious rules and limitations. So, to my Liberal colleagues who are obstructing the access to these documents, I put it to them in a very simple manner. If the statements that the Kielburgers made are true in regards to the payments that were made, those documents will verify that. If the documents verify that, we have nothing else to say. We move on. We move on to other issues. But being that we have felt through our investigation of that we have not gotten clear answers, we need to be able to verify whether or not these payments are in the manner that they described. Were there other payments? Were these payments involving other matters? We need to know that. We have the protections within this committee to make sure that these documents are not going to be just thrown out in the public. But if there are serious contradictions in testimony, then it is incumbent upon us as parliamentarians to find out and get these answers. So the fact that we've already voted to obtain these documents, we've already voted to have clear provisions in place for the protection of these documents to protect the private lives of individuals who may not have done anything, felt they have done anything wrong, but they are very much part of this larger scandal because of their financial connections to the Kielburgers. We need to verify and get these answers. So I know this debate may go on as long as the Liberals want to filibuster and shut us down, but the work of Parliament must be able to return to the Canadian people and say, we did due diligence. We looked into how this massive amount of public money in the middle of the worst economic and financial crisis in memory was going to be hived off and given to a group that has very, very close personal and financial relations with the Prime Minister's family. We have that obligation. All of us from all parties have that obligation to know whether or not the evidence and the claims that have been made at committee is accurate so that we, in the end, can provide an accurate report to Parliament. So I'm asking my Liberal colleagues to do the right thing and stop this obstruction that they are now carrying on into their second day.